It's a beautiful evening out here, and we're going to talk about the way in which we tend to project responsibility and causality for our lives out into the world and onto other people instead of accepting it and empowering ourselves. The thing that brought this up is I was driving and I saw somebody with a bumper sticker, and I know bumper stickers are usually intended to be pretty tongue-in-cheek, right? But this bumper sticker did say, "I don't have road rage, you're just an idiot." And it occurred to me that that is the way many of us think while driving. You make me have road rage. You are the reason that I am upset. It's your fault, not mine. When we have that perspective, and let's be honest, lots of us do, especially if we're not paying attention. We might think of ourselves as being pretty, open, easygoing people. But when somebody's in our way or somebody is doing something we don't like, we tend very quickly to assume that they are the ones in the wrong and we're the ones in the right. We say that they are the ones ruining this situation for me. And while that's fairly harmless in the context of a bumper sticker, it does have some consequences when we take that view and we extrapolate it towards pretty much everything that we do in our life. So in this video, we're going to talk about why we do that, how to notice it, and crucially, what we can do to stop. When I have the attitude that you are the one ruining everything for me, suddenly my life is not my fault. My actions and my reactions can all be blamed on somebody or something else. What we are doing is, in essence, allowing, because it is allowing. It doesn't always feel that way, but that's the point of this video. We're going to talk about how you're actually allowing things that you, of course, cannot control to determine your internal state. Because one of the things that we very frequently also do is we take things personally in life. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, there's that gut reaction, something you want to right the wrong that's been done or whatever. People will get upset. I've had friends who I've been driving with and somebody will cut them off and they yell in their car, "Ah, you jerk," whatever. They use more choice language than that. And of course, the other person can't hear them, right? The other person has no idea that you're yelling. They're driving on doing their thing. That is an example of a scenario where there is no benefit and it's a 100% cost, 0% benefit ratio for you to be upset. The thing has already happened. The person cut you off in traffic. They're moving on. You yelling in your car is not going to do anything to change anything. That is a scenario where we tend to project outward and say, that person cut me off and made me upset, whatever, I was stressed out, now I'm late, all these things happened, it's their fault. But what we need to realize, and the point of this video is to realize that those events can only affect our internal state if we allow them to. And I'm not saying at first it will be easy, but if you are of the mindset that that person with the bumper sticker was, that my road rage is your fault, right? Well, then I have an excuse to always be angry while I'm driving. I have a concretized belief in myself that, well, it's everybody else who's an idiot, not me, and they're the reason that the traffic is slow, whatever. So I always have an excuse to be angry. I always have something loaded up, a out for a situation that is something outside of my control. It gives me an out to not have to say, well, maybe I should have left 10 minutes earlier. Maybe I can't, of course, control what other people are going to do. Maybe my road rage is my fault and they are not actually the idiot. And I know that's kind of a very specific example, but this taking things personally and then extrapolating it to our own personal limit or using it to describe something we believe fundamentally about ourselves goes far, far beyond just driving and yelling at people who cut you off in traffic. Even if somebody breaks up with you in a relationship, even if somebody you love and were engaged to or whatever, you're married, they cheat on you with your best friend, right? That's now we've kind of swung to the other extreme, but that is something that we will have a tendency to take personally. And much like the bumper sticker, it's something that has happened, right? There's an event. The event is inherently neutral. Things happen. People do things. People cut you off in traffic. People cheat on each other. People break up long-term relationships. All of these things happen. Now, the tendency, of course, in those scenarios is to take those things extremely personally because they feel extremely personal. They feel like a betrayal, a a some we've lost something that we thought we had, and it is a pretty big wound, right? That is a very normal human reaction, and it's why breakups are so hard. It's why there's so much media on YouTube about how to get your ex back or get over it or whatever. And all of it really comes down to how we can better control the scenario so that those feelings don't get triggered. It's how can I get more girls, or how can I not lose the person I already have, or how should I act? How should I change what I'm doing so that I get a certain result? And of course, there's nothing wrong with learning to improve your skills to be a better communicator or to be a better partner in a relationship or whatever, to make sure that those things are less likely to happen. But the thing is, as long as we have that dependency, that core dependency, we still are operating very heavily within the belief that I need to control these outside factors because they determine how I feel inside. If this person leaves me, I'm going to, of course, take it personally. I'm going to, of course, use that as a judgment. This person can't leave me because what will that say about me? Because the story in my head that I've built about this person or this thing reflects back to my view on myself. And that is what we're really trying to protect. When we yell at somebody in traffic, they acted outside of your control. You didn't like that, so we yell in an attempt to make sure that they don't act outside your control again. That's why people yell at people in the first place. They don't do that ever again. Because when you do that, I feel upset. Once again, very normal, but it still has that core thought that I can't control how I feel. I am not responsible for in here, you are. And even as something so potentially traumatic as a tough breakup in a relationship, what we have to realize is that we are responsible for our own emotions. It doesn't feel that way. We are responsible for our own reactions, even though it often doesn't feel that way. I feel like things outside of myself are responsible for the conditions inside of myself. And so I attempt to control or to yell or to be angry or to make sure people don't leave me or whatever so that I get to continue feeling good inside. And that's the key. We have the power to be pretty much indifferent, to not let things ruin our day, to not let things ruin our life. But we let these relationships, these things that have happened decades ago, dictate how we still act. And they are not around anymore. They only exist in your own head. You have given away so much of your own power that you have allowed things that occurred years and years ago to continue to influence your actions in a way that you don't even think is necessarily beneficial. Once again, that is an example of just giving away all of your internal responsibility for your state, saying, it had to do with that relationship. I'm taking that so personally. I take this event so personally towards myself, and I use that as a lens through which I try to figure out how I should think about myself. So if this person leaves me, well, now I need to feel terrible about myself forever because I thought that's the way it was supposed to be. And what we do is we take how we thought it was supposed to be, and that becomes this projection that we measure up reality to. And when reality doesn't measure up, now there's this discrepancy, and we can carry that wound, that dissonance in our head as a wound that we carry throughout our life, saying, well, why did that person leave me? It wasn't supposed to be this way. It wasn't this, wasn't what, whatever. And when we do that, we block ourselves off more and more and more to new experiences, to new things, to new relationships. Because we say, no, it'll be like that old one. But that old relationship still only exists in our head. It's not actually there anymore, right? So what we do is we have this projection that we say, I'll get hurt again because I can't control my inside. Their job is to control my inside feelings. And the one time that I trusted somebody, they let me down. So I'll never do that again because it's their job to make me feel good and they can't do it. So nobody can. Not a very rational perspective necessarily, but if you actually look at it, that's what a lot of people are acting on out of their kind of built up past trauma based on the belief that they can't control their internal state in the first place. So What you need to do first is have that awareness to actually look and see when you're in traffic and you're getting upset, or when you're getting stressed by reading the news, when things are occurring to you that are changing your emotional state. Your inner feeling is being changed against your will by the environment. Dive deeper within that thought process and kind of find that kernel of, why am I giving away that power? Because I am giving it away. And why am I taking it personally, crucially? So many of the things that happen to us in our life are pretty much neutral. At the very beginning, I talked about, if somebody cheats on you or whatever, it's going to feel very personal. You're going to think, what did I do wrong? How did that happen to me? And we tell ourselves a story about who we are. And our view about ourselves is based on these stories. So we change fundamentally how we view ourselves and who we think we are, which of course changes what we think we should do or can do, or our limitations. But if you actually look at what goes on in a relationship when somebody cheats on somebody else, usually it's born entirely out of that person's own inner trauma, their own inner sense of lack, their own feeling of, I can't control how I feel inside, so I need to reach out to somebody else for comfort or whatever, or wounds from their childhood, things that are entirely going on in their own head. And because we have a tendency to be so self-centered, everybody's going around thinking me, 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 me. We are all trying to get our own needs met, but at the same time, we take everything personally because we're still thinking me, 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 me. So when somebody breaks your heart, we try to internalize that as, what does this mean about me? How is this affecting me? Not realizing that the other person was acting in the same pattern. They were just thinking me, 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 doing their own thing, and really had almost nothing to do with you at all, which sounds kind of crazy because, of course, it feels extremely personal. But really, that person's just acting out their own patterns, acting out of their own feelings of insecurity or their own feelings of trying to get what they need. And we take their actions and say, what does this mean about me? Once again, taking away our own power, because then we are allowing the other person to determine our view of ourselves and our limits. We are allowing that person in traffic to determine how I feel. We're allowing the person at the grocery store who didn't smile at me to determine how I feel about myself. We allow somebody who gives us a random look or is just a crazy person who yells at us. We start to wonder, does that actually mean something about me? I shouldn't have worn this shirt. Oh, why do I not wear deodorant today, or whatever the thing might be? We have the personalized story that we are trying to fit into the view of why everybody else thinks this way about us. Why do we want to control everybody else's thoughts about us in the first place? It's because we are operating under the belief that they are responsible for our internal feelings. We're giving away the power. It's why we care so much what other people think. What other people think, of course, doesn't actually matter unless we believe it changes our internal state. But when we realize that we are giving everybody else the power to determine how we feel inside, that's kind of silly. So we need to dive into that process for ourselves. You need to do it for yourself, to look at those scenarios, those bumper sticker scenarios in your own life where you are blaming other people for the way you act. And is that really true? Is it true that your road rage is just because other people are idiots? Or is it the truth that you could take more responsibility for your own emotional well-being, your own state, and realize that it's not personal? Those breakups, those things that break our heart, they're actually, even though they can feel, of course, intensely personal, they don't mean you're a bad person. That is an assumption we make as a reaction to try to justify the things that we think, well, this person's supposed to make me feel okay, and they didn't make me feel okay. In fact, they made me feel really bad. So what did I do wrong? What did I need to change in this upcoming relationship or in the future to never have that happen again? Not realizing that it's our job. It's not their job to change how we feel inside in the first place. So to sum up, 3 basic steps. First, awareness. I say this in like so many of my videos, but being aware of your own patterns is the only thing that will start the process of being able to actually change, right? You can't change if you don't know. So notice in your own life when you are, especially those 100% cost, 0% benefit analysis where you're giving away all of your power in a moment for no reason. You're talking to somebody and they make you super upset and you don't even talk to them about it, but you just stew and you're angry about it. No benefit, only cost. Then, realize where we are also taking those things personally. So, awareness part two, extrapolate that towards where in my life are things happening that are affecting my state, and then I'm also making a judgment about myself. So this is where like the relationship thing comes in. Relationships might fall apart, and then we use that. Firstly, it changes our internal state, but then we, as a reaction, try to change the way we are or the way we think of ourselves. And this applies a lot of limits that otherwise wouldn't exist. We start to feel more limited. We start to feel more restricted because we think that I can't do all of these things because that's going to make other people do whatever, which will change my internal state. The more we externalize that power over ourselves, the more limits we find because, of course, we need to control everybody else to control how we feel. And then third and final step is just to start letting go and start with the small things. Start with those people cutting you off in traffic. Start with thinking, you know what? It's probably not about me. Even if somebody yells at me, just because they had a bad day, it really doesn't mean I did something wrong necessarily. Because a different person might have reacted completely differently in that same scenario, but because this one thing happens, we internalize it as something about us. Notice and start to let go of the things that bother you that really have no discernible benefit to even think about in the first place. Start to let those things kind of just slide off your back a little bit. Things that once would have bothered you will start to be less significant because, well, it's not really personal if that person cuts you off. It's not even really personal if that person breaks up with you. Even if you wanted to be with them, the very fact that the breakup happens means it's actually probably not a very good fit. So find those things in your life that are affecting you on an internal level negatively, that are outside of your control, and start to take back some of that power because then it frees up a tremendous amount of energy to do whatever the hell you want that is unrelated to being restricted by your projections of how everybody else is supposed to act and trying to control. Because if I don't need to control how everybody else is going to think about me, if I don't need to control all of these external factors in order to feel good inside, suddenly my brain is like 80% of what it's doing all the time is just free to dedicate to whatever you might want to pursue. So start with awareness, then realize where you are identifying with negative things and creating new negative stories based on this internal feeling of not being okay that is coming from the outside. First, so things that are outside of you influencing the way you view yourself. And then start letting go. Start small, work up to the bigger things. Start with traffic, start with the bumper stickers. Take off your bumper sticker that says, I don't have road rage, it's your fault because you're an idiot. That's a good place to start. Notice those beliefs and those stories in your life and start letting go of those. See what happens. If you want more information on letting go, check out this video up here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.